What is going on, everyone? In this video, I'm going to tell you about the exciting news. I'm having a Kickstarter for my channel where you can give me money and I'll send you a book with AI generated art. Very exciting news. All right, that was a pretty good joke, right? Actually, in this video, I'm going to talk about destroy objectives in BattleTech Aces. Basically, this is a way that the automa is targeting specific units or buildings on the map to take out usually as part of a mission objective. So there's something important, and if it gets destroyed, the player loses. And so that's what the automa is going to be focusing on. I'm going to talk about destroy objectives in general, just kind of teach it, explain how it works, what the rules are, and I'll give you my thoughts on it because to be honest with you, I haven't had a great relationship with the destroy objectives so far. I might be doing something wrong. And as always, I make these videos, I teach you a little bit if you need it. I play through for some form of entertainment, I guess. But then I also want to learn too, because some people will comment and point out things that I didn't even think of. So I could be doing these wrong. I think I'm doing them right. But I'll just kind of comment on the parts where I've seen not weird behavior, but just it doesn't seem to be, going after the objective quite as aggressively as I thought. So we'll see what happens here. But I'll point those times out. And if you have any comments, please let me know. All right, let's talk about how destroy objectives work in general. And I'll apologize in advance. I spilled something on the rulebook here and the pages stuck together and yeah, it ripped a little bit off. All right, but let's just talk through it. So destroy objectives. This is a special order that only applies if the sorter you are playing has an objective that requires automated units to attack and destroy something specific. So like I said, it could be a building, a set of buildings they're trying to destroy. It could be a specific unit they're trying to destroy. That's what this is simulating. So if you know there's like as a player, okay, if I destroy this particular unit from the automa, I win the mission. You're going to probably prioritize it if you can. Well, this is allowing the automa to do the same thing. The sortie's rules will identify what unit or object on the map is a destroy objective and which automated units will pursue it. This special order essentially treats the objective to be destroyed as if it were an enemy unit. So this is referencing like if it was a building or some other non-unit thing that it's trying to attack. That's what it's talking about in this paragraph here. So obviously if it is a unit on the board, then yeah, it is an enemy unit. So it's going to go after it. But if it's a building, that's not normally an enemy unit. But if it's a destroy objective, then it will treat it as though it is. So this means that the units will still follow the procedure under 3, identify the target, page 12, including selecting a target in the closest zone if able. This is really important, and this is the part where I'm finding that it doesn't seem to be quite as aggressive as I would like, because it will still go to a certain radius around the unit and focus on targets there. So in other words, if the destroy objective isn't close enough to it, it may completely ignore it. Okay, and now I'll have to fill in the blanks here. In the case in the case that you need to check specific stats, so it's talking about target movement modifier, armor, things like that. But if the destroy objective doesn't have that kind of stat, so a building wouldn't, for example, the destroy objective special order card provides a list of default stats you can use. And that's what this is here. And that's directly on this card on the right. So it's basically just saying if this isn't really a unit, it's not a mech, it's not a vehicle, it's not infantry, then you can use these stats to replace it. And that's mostly going to be for a building. The destroy objective also works in conjunction with the color priorities on the command cards. This is also super important because this is really the only place that it shows destroy objective. Most command cards include the destroy objective, that symbol, and you're going to see it on the map here for these vehicles. They have the destroy objective next to them. I just did that as my reminder. It will be their first priority in one or more color columns, often making it a preferred target before other enemy units. Now, it says this, but I have found that it isn't really that often that this happens. Let me just show you an example here. So for this mission, this is the commander card that you're starting with. And if you watched my video where I tried classic BattleTech with aces, I ran into the same issue. So I start with this card for mission 10. You'll see right away that the red column does not have destroy objective as one of the priorities. Yellow and blue do, red does not. Now, if you've played aces and if you've watched any of the things I've done, either or, you'll know that the red list comes up way more often than anything else. It's by far the most frequently used list. So this means when we're starting the game, most of the cards are not going to be looking at the destroy objective, right? They're going to only if it shows yellow or blue. And so let me just bring up a stack of these cards to show you. So this is the brawler deck, which is going to be used in this mission. And so this card right here uses yellow. So that would target the destroy objective. This one uses yellow and red. This one uses red. This one uses yellow, yellow. This one uses all red. This one uses red. So yellow is mixed in there, but red is definitely the most commonly used. Okay, here's the summoner using the skirmisher deck. All red, all red. Here's some yellow, here's some blue, nothing, and red. Again, yellow and blue are mixed in there, but red is by far the most common. And so depending on the shuffle, it may or may not actually go after that destroy objective. Let's look at the missile boat, which is the last one that's starting this mission. Red, red, nothing, yellow, yellow, blue. This one's a little more balanced, but again, red is still the majority. It's in there more frequently than the other ones. So this is the thing that you'll find with this that I found so far is it's a little bit hit or miss with these color lists. I mean, they do often have the destroy objective, and a lot of the other commander cards do have the destroy objective in the red list, but not always. So it's kind of left up to some of the random luck of the shuffle you do. And I'm going to shuffle these cards again. I'm just going to play it randomly, and we'll see what happens. But in addition to that, you also have that range, right? The range that it's looking for movement and the range it's looking for targeting, where it may just not look at a destroy objective at all because it's not in the required range. So those are the two things working against this a little bit. So I'm just kind of laying those out there from the beginning. Now, this card here, if you look at the special order card for destroy objective, it actually tells you this right here. It says the destroy objective will not automatically be selected as a target unless its stats match an aces card or it is identified by a color priority list on a command card. So, you know, it's letting you know it may not go for the destroy objective. And I think I mentioned this in the video with Classic where I should have read this at the beginning because then I wouldn't have been so surprised that it didn't go after it. Now, this is important because if the card is looking for the lowest TMM, it's possible it will. So if it's a building, it would prioritize a building because it tells you right over here the TMM is going to be -4. So that's most likely going to be the lowest TMM on the board, or tied at least. Sometimes it'll say it has movement of 0. So if it's looking for movement, it may prioritize that if it's looking at lowest movement. Although I usually see highest movement on these cards, but anyway, and it's always considered to have been moved. So that will increase its priority as well. So for buildings, I think this would work better because these are going to almost always, at least this one and this one are going to bump its priority. It does 0 damage at all ranges. It has no overheat rating. And if it's a building, you're going to use the current construction factor in place of any armor or structure. So these all show up on cards pretty frequently. It always has the highest point value. So you can see that buildings are definitely going to get moved up the list a lot if they're in range. That's the biggest thing. Are they in range? Okay, and so the other things on the card just says use it if the special rules include a destroy objective. The objective is considered an enemy unit. If any of its stats are undefined by the sorted special rules, use the default stats over here on the right. All right, it's time for some examples. So I obviously changed up the layout of the map here. I thought I wanted to add a couple of buildings here just to show how things are different when you have buildings versus when you don't have buildings. So I took one of the vehicles off because they only give you 4 destroy objective markers. So just so it's clear on camera, we've got 2 units that are destroy objectives and we've got 2 buildings that are destroy objectives. So I'm going to run through a whole bunch of different scenarios. I'm going to start with the player hasn't moved at all and the aces have to move and what that looks like. And then I'm going to go through maybe the players moved a couple of units and what happens with the aces. And then maybe the players moved all their units and then what do the aces do? And then I'll do the same thing with combat. What does it look like when the player's kind of far away, the player's close? Like we'll just do all kinds of different scenarios and see what the aces decide to do. And I'm going to randomize the cards and we're just going to go with whatever comes up. So you'll see when it works great, when it doesn't work great, you'll just see all the different aspects of it. And I was going to just play through the mission to show this to you, but as I started doing it, it was like, I don't know if this is really showing you as well as I would like. So I decided to kind of cut back. I'm going to just do straight up examples, and then I might post the playthrough later if you're interested in just watching it in a live mission. So that's the way I'm going to approach it. I'm going to move the camera behind the aces so you can kind of see it from their perspective, get away from this boring angle that I always use. And then we'll get into doing some examples of this. All right, very good. Here we go. So looking at things from the aces perspective, we're going to start with an example where the player hasn't moved at all. So the player has one initiative for the mission, and the aces have to make the first move. So what I'm going to do is take the decks for the aces. I'm just going to shuffle them up. I'm just going to flip them over and just, all right, so we do that. So that one does start with the red, but that's okay. So we'll put this out here. And then I will do the summoner, which is a secondary unit. Okay, so there you go. They got red again. So you're kind of seeing it in action here. The red definitely comes up the most often. And then we'll go ahead and do the Bane real quick. Okay, that one got yellow. So the Bane will likely go right after the destroy objectives. But we'll see what happens. Okay, so the Bane's going to go first, but I'm going to play it like this mission where the Bane's supposed to get the last move token. So I'm just going to use that for this. And we're going to go with the summoner first, which has the lowest number. So let's see what happens when the player hasn't moved. Let's see what it decides to do here. And this is going to be interesting because the destroy objective is going to give us specific instructions about the buildings. And since nothing else has moved, I think the buildings will be prioritized here because they're going to be treated like they moved. That's what the card says, if you remember. So they're going to be considered moved at all times. So let's go through the first card and let's see what's going to happen. So it's going to say if the ideal red target has moved and a unit can move within 16 inches of it. So this isn't going to be true, of course, because the red list, actually, you know what? Let's take a look. So the red list is going to look at, on this particular card, is going to look at the lowest armor. Now, the lowest armor would be considering construction factor for these buildings. So the buildings that you have here, if I remember correctly, I believe these smaller buildings that are just the, square shape, if you will, those have a construction factor of 4. And the larger buildings like this one have a construction factor of 6. So we would consider that to be 4 armor or 6 armor. Now, I have plenty of units out here, like the Maxim has 3 armor, Raven has 2, LRM Carrier has 2, Spider has 2. So those are going to actually be considered lower armor than the buildings. And so the red list is not going to pick up on the buildings in this case. So it's going to look for lower armor. None of those units have moved, so we're going to move past that behavior. So next it's going to say if there are any moved enemies within 30 inches. So normally we would say no, there are not. Now if I measure from the summoner, we're well within 30 inches here. So to most of this stuff, it's about 20 to 24 inches. Now since we're playing with the destroy objective and the buildings are marked as destroy objectives, we know that they are considered to have moved at this point. So they are going to get picked up by that condition. So we're going to use balanced here. So now what's going to happen is it's going to go out into its targeting ranges. And so this is where I mentioned that, sometimes it feels like, it's trying to get the destroy objectives, but then these targeting ranges are kind of limiting it. Now, I don't think that's going to happen here because nothing has moved, but it's going to go out for 12 and then 18 inches. So let me measure the 12 because we have our 2 destroy objectives for the vehicles here. And so for 12 inches, they're, I think, just outside of that. But when we go to 18 inches, I think they're going to be really the only things that it picks up. Now, it's actually, you know what? That's in it, just barely. Okay. So at 12 inches, we have nothing. But at 18 inches, we have these 2 destroy objectives, the building, the Raven, and the Maxim. So it's going to look at one of those. Then it's going to say it wants to be able to target on the red list. So again, we're going to go with lowest armor. Now, these 2 heavy hover APCs also have 2 armor. So here's the card here for the heavy hover APC. So 2 armor, 1 structure. And in this mission, again, I'm not playing the mission, but I'm just going to use the setup for it. The mission has these units taking an MP hit at the beginning, so their TMM is 1, and they can only move 8 inches with normal ground movement. So as we go to the next part, because again, it wants to target something on the red list. Now on this card, it doesn't have to be moved. It just wants to be able to target something on the red list. It doesn't have to have been a moved target at this point. So next it's going to look at the lowest TMM. Now, The LRM carrier, well, actually, that's not in range, sorry. So the Raven has a 2, the Maxim has a 3. These heavy hover APCs have a 1. So we're really looking at this point only at these because they have the lowest TMM of the available units. So this is going to pick up on these destroy objectives in this case for its movement. So we'll kind of breeze through the movement because it doesn't really matter that much, but it wants to be able to target at least one moved enemy when we go into this. So it's actually going to want to be able to target this because this is the only thing that's considered moved in that range that it was looking. It's going to try to occupy the woods, and it's going to try to get within 12 inches of the target. So I think based on that, I would try to move it right about there. I don't know if that would get it to within 12 inches. I'm going to take a look. I don't think, not quite, but close enough. Okay, so that would be the first move. It did pick up the destroy objective in this example. All right, so I went ahead and moved 5 units, just kind of in accordance with the initiative order. So I moved 5 units, and now we're going to go into the Thunderbolt IIC. This one might be a little more interesting because it starts out closer. So let's take a look at what's going on. So if the ideal red target enemy has moved and is within 10 inches. Now, of course, I'm looking at the ideal is going to be across the entire map here, but that's going to be the lowest armor. The LRM carrier, these two, the Raven and the Spider, those all have 2 armor. So the buildings are out at this point. Then it's going to look at lowest TMM. It would be the LRM carrier or one of these two. And then it's going to look at the highest point value, and that's going to be the LRM carrier. These only have a point value of 12, and the LRM carrier, I think, is 26 or something like that. So it would pick the LRM carrier, and since it's not within 10 inches, it would skip and move on. Sorry, let me bring up the other card. So it's going to say if there are at least 3 enemies within line of sight, yes. And 24 inches, yes. Basically everything. So now it's going to say target anything, but try to target the nearest thing to you. So that's going to be one of these two. So it is going to use, again, the destroy objective for its movement. Now it's going to do basically the same thing here, and it wants to be able to target at least one moved enemy. So now we have more of these. We have more moved enemies. It wants no enemies within 12 inches, and it wants to get closer to the target. That's going to be pretty interesting. Okay, so if it gets closer to the target, it obviously cannot occupy woods, so we're going to skip that part of it. Maybe if I moved it in this direction and moved it like that, which it should be able to do. Yeah, that'd be about 10 inches right there. Yeah, that would put it out at 12. So I'll do something like that, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Doesn't seem like a super great move, but that's fine. That's where it will go. Okay. All right, let me move some more units, and then we'll come back for the Bane. All right, so I moved a couple of more units. I actually sprinted the 2 destroy objective vehicles ahead because I want to see what happens now that they're moved farther away. So I sprinted those ahead. They're allowed to sprint still in the mission. I moved the LRM carrier behind here, the building for indirect fire. I put the grasshopper kind of on the corner, and I moved the Spider, but then I realized I only need to move 4 units. So I moved it back. Hopefully it's in the right place. I don't really remember. Anyway, it doesn't really matter that much. Okay, so the Bane's going to figure out what it wants to do. Now it's a missile boat, so chances are pretty good it's going to want to stand still or something, but let's see. So it says if the unit has any armor and there are any enemies within targeting range that have moved in 24 inches. So I guess that means that it can target when it's done moving, I guess. Or no, I guess it just means current targeting range that have moved within 24 inches, which it has indirect fire, so I'm going to say yes, that is the case. I think these things are definitely within 24 inches. Yeah, the building definitely is. Yeah, pretty much everything's in 24 inches. So yeah, I'm going to say it does have that. So it wants to go out 12 inches. So now it's not going to find anything. I don't know if it's going to find anything at 18 either. Let's see. Yeah, it is going to find things at 18. So basically the Ryan, the Condor, the Spider, and the Banshee, like these 4 units right here, those are all going to be within that 18-inch range. It's going to look for a move target. Now, hold on. Let me check that building. Sorry, I keep forgetting about the building. Now, that's outside of 18 inches. So it's going to look at the yellow list, which does have the destroy objective, but it doesn't have any destroy objectives in range right now within that 18 inches. It doesn't have that. So it's looking for a move target on the yellow list. So we would pull this up, and we would skip the destroy objective because there aren't any in range. It's going to go for armor loss. Nothing's lost any armor. It's going to go for lowest TMM. So that's going to be one of these two. And again, it's looking for a moved enemy, so it's got to be the Orion or the Banshee. And it's going to go for the most medium damage, which would be the Banshee. That's what it's going to use for its movement. And it's basically going to try to occupy woods, which it cannot do. It has very little movement. It's going to get closer to the target and get cover versus as many enemies as possible. So that's interesting for the Bane, because the Bane could definitely move like here and get cover from this corner, which is what it's asking for. Obviously, it can't occupy woods. It just wants to get closer to the target and get cover. I would be inclined, based on the way this unit plays, to just move it here, move it forward to the target a little bit, but keep it behind here for indirect fire. But as usual, sometimes I think about these cards and I don't know, can I apply my creative license here, or should I follow the card exactly as it says? And based on some of the comments that were made on the Golden Rule video that I did, I think I'm just going to play the card like it says, and I'm just going to try to get it out here in a little bit of cover. So it's going to have cover versus almost every enemy. I think probably literally every enemy, but we'll have line of sight to the Banshee. So I'm going to go ahead and move it there. And I'm going to mark it, which I forgot to do for the summoner, but it doesn't matter because I'm not going to attack. It's just going to be the enemy. Okay, so I'll move the rest of the units. If you've noticed, I'm kind of keeping them all in a line here. I want to keep them in that same range bracket because I want to see if it picks the destroy objective overall. So I'm going to do the same thing with these. And then on the next example, I'm going to go through moving some of these units a little closer, and then we're going to see what happens when I do that. All right, let's do some combat. I'm not actually going to do the combat. We're just going to figure out who's attacking what here. So the skirmisher is going to go first, the summoner, and we're going to go through the priorities here. So the priority is 24 inches, which I think that's going to give the summoner access to just about everything we have on the map here because it's the most forward. So yeah, even to the Raven there, yeah, it's got everything within that range. Okay, so that's a pretty long range for this one. It wants to hit the target's rear, can't do that. So it's going to go to the red command list. And so again, here's where this is going to come into play, because the red list on this card does not have the destroy objective. It's going to go to armor. And it's going to go, we know what this is going to, well, no, actually, you know what? I hid the LRM carrier. Okay, so it actually might pick the destroy objectives. All right, but it's going to go to armor first. So the buildings are out because this has 4, this has 6. So the buildings are out. So it's going to go for the lowest armor, which would mean the spider, the 2 vehicle destroy objectives, and the Raven. The LRM carrier is out of range, so it can't do that. It's next going to go to TMM, so that's going to pull in only the 2 destroy objectives at that point because they have the lowest TMM of 1. So in this case, it would pick the destroy objectives for those. Lowest TMM is going to break the tie, and both of those have it. You would just pick, I suppose. It goes to point value next. They both have a 12, so I guess you just pick whichever one. I'd probably pick the farther one as long as it's within 24 inches, just to make it so it's, just in case that other one gets a little bit too far out of range. You shoot that one first. So, okay, so the summoner successfully picked the destroy objective in this example. All right, let's go to the, oops, sorry, I should follow protocol. There we go. All right, Thunderbolt's next. Now, Thunderbolt's going to be interesting because where it ended up moving, it got out of range, but I don't know if it can hit the, let's just pretend I moved it here. There we go. All right, so let's see what it wants to do. It's also going to go out to 12. It actually has the exact same thing. Okay, so in that case, I think these are within 24 inches. I'm going to measure real quick to see. So 24 inches, yeah, they're both there. Okay, so this one's also going to pick the destroy objective in this case because of the red command list. So it successfully picks those. All right. So that's another good one. And then the Bane, let's see what the Bane ends up doing because it had a different one. Also going 24 inches out, attacked by an ally this turn. So because it has line of sight to those, it's through a bit of a mess here, but it does have line of sight to the 2 destroy objectives, so it would pick those as well. So there we go. A successful round for the automa, choosing the destroy objective in all cases, and it actually didn't pick the buildings. It actually went for the 2 mission objectives in this, again, I'm kind of partially using this mission, but those are the destroy objectives for this mission. Okay, I'm going to do a second round here of movement. And since the movement doesn't really matter too much for the aces, I'm just going to see whether it picks the destroy objective and move on. But we're going to say that the automa wins the initiative this time, and I have to move first. Now I'm going to change things up, and I'm going to move these units in a little bit closer and see what that does. All right, movement round 1 is done. I'm playing like a crazy person, so I'm just rushing my hover tank out in front. I'm jumping the grasshopper on top of the building. Not sure if you can see that. There you go. Grasshopper's on top of the building. LRM carrier stay where it is, and I sprinted the vehicle destroy objective away. I'm just going to pretend the other one was destroyed based on the attacks. Probably both of them would have been destroyed in reality, just based on the Bane attacking it, the Summoner attacking it, the Thunderbolt. I mean, they probably would have taken those things out. But let's just say only one of them was taken out. I was able to rush the other one away, and let's just see what happens here. Okay, so let's see who goes first. So Summoner is 664, Thunderbolt is 213, and the Bane we're going to have go last again, just following that part of the mission. So the Brawler is going to go up first. The Brawler's got the yellow list, so the yellow list is going to want the destroy objective. Now, this is going to get funky because, of course, the buildings are here now. So those just straight up destroy objective, it could pick those automatically. Okay, so if this unit has more armor than the damage rating of any enemy, that is definitely true. We're going to use aggressive movement. Okay, now here's where things change with the range. It's going to look at 12 inches away. Now, because I sprinted this hover tank out, it's going to key on it because that is within 12 inches. That's the only thing in 12 inches. So regardless of what it's looking for, which is being able to target something on the yellow list, it's going to use the maxim for movement. And that's okay. That doesn't mean it's going to attack this on the combat phase, although I suspect it probably will. But let's see what it does. It's going to use ground movement. It doesn't want any unmoved enemies within 12 inches. That won't be a problem because the only thing that's in that range right now is the Maxim, which has moved. It wants to be able to target as many enemies as possible and get cover versus as many enemies as possible. So that makes this pretty easy. I'm just going to plop it right here. I'm not going to be too specific about it. It's just going to go right there. It's in the cover, and it has basically access to target anything on the map. And you know what? I might move it a touch that way. I think it can still see that destroy objective. We'll just say it can. So there you go. It's got everything. Okay, I'll move some more units and we'll keep going. All right, I'm really playing like a dum-dum now. So I just had 3 units in the woods just stand still, and then I jumped the spider way out right into the face of the Thunderbolt IIC and the Summoner. And now the Summoner's going to go, and we're going to see what happens with this situation. Okay, Skirmisher's looking at the blue list now. So if the ideal blue has moved and the unit can move within 6 inches of it. Ooh, this is interesting. So I think that would be true because the blue list, the ideal is a destroy objective. So we have 3 of those. We've got the 2 buildings and we've got the vehicle that's run away. But this one here, I think this can move within 6 inches of it. It has 10-inch movement. So yeah, absolutely. It can get within 6 inches of that. So we're going to go ahead and use aggressive. So it's going to go 16 inches out, and it's going to look to be able to target a moved blue unit. So again, this is going to be the destroy objective, and it's going exactly 16 inches. So that's going to put this building in it, the grasshopper. That other building is not, and then of course those 3 units are within range. But that means it's going to pick that destroy objective. So this is kind of what I'll see happen with this is it's going to get itself. That vehicle now is kind of out of the mind of the automa now. It's just too far away for it to consider that still. Now, the good thing with this move is it's going to move forward potentially, and that could allow it to get back in range of that vehicle as it's running away. So the requirements here that it uses ground movement to get closer to the target, but now it wants to get in the fewest enemy targeting ranges. So I think in order to do that, it's going to have to, actually, I really don't know what it can do to make this happen. I ended up moving the Summoner here. I think it made the most sense based on the card. It wanted to get closer to the target, which it did. It got a little bit closer to it. It wants to get out of line of sight from the most enemies. Now, in order to do that, I couldn't go left here because everything would have access to it except maybe the Raven. So this going this way wasn't really great. I mean, I guess I could have done, now that I'm looking at it, maybe I could have. I moved this way because that got the Dragon and the Raven out of the mix. But I'm thinking if I took it this direction instead, I don't know. I don't have enough room to get the Grand Dragon out of the picture, so I think I'd have to move it here. So that takes the vehicle out of it. You know, let me know what you think. Maybe it should have moved over this direction. It could have accomplished the same goal, but that took 2 units out of targeting range. So I thought that was the best option. Okay, I moved a bunch of other units. I moved a Condor down here. Everything else just stood still. I mean, the thing is, the cards, the automa cards never check for target number. So they do check for TMM though, so it might pick up on some of these, but in general, it doesn't really actively seek out what's the lowest target number, so I'm not sure how much that will impact things. It's not like it would take that away from a destroy objective, put it that way. All right, so let's see what the Bane will do. So let me take the token off there, and let's look. So it's also looking at the blue list. Okay, so if there are any moved units within 24 inches and no unmoved enemies within 12, well, since I moved that condor down there, it's within 12, so that's not gonna fly. If there are any moved enemies within 24 inches, yep, lots of them. Okay, now it's gonna look within the next 10 inches, and that's gonna, I think, probably just be the condor. Yeah, just the condor, but it does have a moved unit within 10 inches. So again, regardless of the, and sorry, I hope this is clear, but even though it's asking for a blue, it's not the ideal blue. So it's not looking anywhere on the map here. It's only looking within those 10 inches. So regardless of what the blue list says, it's going for the condor as far as its movement target. Now, what it wants to do is it actually wants to get out of line of sight, which is pretty typical for the missile boat. It wants to get out of line of sight of any moved blue unit, which is going to be the condor. So it's basically just going to, I mean, it already is technically out of line of sight. You know, so it's already done that, but then it's kind of weird because you read this and it's like, get closer to the target. Huh? Why? Why would I get closer to the target? You want me to be out of line of sight to this blue thing. So I don't know. Sometimes I don't really know how to interpret some of this stuff, but anyway, I would probably just move it here because I'll satisfy the other requirement, which is I got a little closer to the unit. I moved an inch. I got cover versus as many enemies as I can. I can't do this one. I can't get it out of, I can't move closer to the target, but then also have no unmoved enemies in 12 inches. Oh wait, no, never mind. That moved already. Never mind. That's fine. Yeah, we're good. But it didn't pick the destroy objective now because these units are really close. And this is, again, this is what I see is once the units start getting close, the destroy objectives are very hit or miss. It's all dependent on what's on the card. It's very very random. Okay, so let's get into combat again. I'm not gonna do it for players. I'm just gonna go ahead and do this for the Aces side. So we'll go ahead with the Thunderbolt first. Okay, Thunderbolt has access to just about everything, so it's going to look within 6 inches. So here you go. So now we're getting into an example. Now it's funny, we got, you know, it got lucky, so to speak, on the first round where everything was looking out 24 inches. But this round, we start off with one that is kind of part of what I'm testing, which is, okay, well now something's within 6 inches, so is it going to only target that? And the answer is yes, it's only going to go out 6 inches. So it actually has 2 targets here. So it's got the condor within 6 inches and it's got the maxim within 6 inches, right? I'm just double checking. Yeah, well within 6 inches. So when this happens, it only considers the targets that are within 6 inches. That's it. It's very clear in the rules that when it goes to do movement or targeting, even if there's a, you know, even if the list that it has on the card would go for the destroy objective or go for something else, it only can work with the units that are in the first range bracket. So that's going to be 6 inches here. Can't hit the target's rear. Going for the yellow command list. We're going to go for armor loss, which we don't have. Lowest TMM, they have the same. Most medium damage, that's going to be the maxim, which has the most medium damage. So that's what it would target on this round. Okay, Summoner is going to go also 6 inches, but the Summoner doesn't have anything within 6 inches. So everything is too far away to be in that range bracket. Although I should check this spider, but I don't think that's within 6 inches. No, that's about 7.5 or so. Okay, so it can't do that. So it has to go up to 24 inches. So it's going to have a lot available here. But since it has the blue list, I think it's going to get, oh, you know what? Stupidly, the way I positioned the spider, actually, it wasn't stupid because I did this before, I think before the Summoner moved. But the Summoner's actually in the rear of the spider. So in this case, it's going to hit target's rear. It can do that to the spider. So I wasn't even thinking about that when I moved it, but yeah, it can hit the rear. So it actually would target the spider, not the destroy objective. Okay, so then we'll go to the Bane. Bane's going to go 6 inches out as well, but I don't think it has anything within 6. And anyway, it can't target the condor, so no. So it's going to go out 24 inches. Attacked by an ally this turn. That, I don't think it can't, it doesn't have direct line of sight. So since it has direct line of sight to something, it doesn't use indirect fire. That's off the table. I'll pull up the card real quick for indirect fire. It's, use this order when any units with indirect fire IF ability have 0 line of sight to any enemy. So since it has line of sight to these units over here, it's not going to use indirect fire. So it can't do this attack by an ally this turn because it can't see the Maxim. Then it's going to go to the blue command list, and it's going to go to the destroy objective. And I think in this example, yeah, that building there is definitely within 24. This is also within 24 as I knock over the dice and almost knock over the grasshopper. So I'm going to use the laser light just to see if it can see this big building. I don't really think it can. I would say maybe. Basically what would break the tide, let's just say it could see both of those. So it can see both destroy objectives, so they're both within, they're both possible targets. It's going to go to lowest structure. And if you remember on the destroy objective card, it will say use a construction factor for armor or structure right here. It says armor/structure. So lowest structure would be the smaller building because it has a CF of 4 and the big one has a CF of 6. So it would go for that, that smaller building there. Okay, so that one did get a destroy objective on this round. Now, what would come to mind here for me, and I'm going to reset this and we're going to do it a little bit differently, but what would come to mind here for me is that in this mission, the vehicles are the destroy objectives. So if we got to this point and I still had destroy objectives on the board without the buildings, there were no buildings in this example, the vehicle is going to get off scot-free. Nothing's going to go for it. As long as I have units within 24 inches and that unit is out of 24 inches, it just isn't going to go for it. Every single unit I think has on their combat card, I think they have at least 24 inches as a range bracket, you know, to keep it in medium range. And that would keep these vehicles out of the destroy objective consideration. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about here. And that's kind of what, you know, you end up expecting on this type of mission. But I'm going to reset without the buildings and we'll give this another try. I'm also going to play smartly instead of like an idiot. And we'll see what I can do to keep those out of targeting range. All right, I reset things now. There's no buildings. We have it back to the original setup for this particular mission. Again, I'm not playing through the mission right now. I'm just going to show you an example. But now the 3 vehicle destroy objectives are there. No buildings to act as like an additional distraction, although they didn't really distract that much in the examples there. I reshuffled all the automa cards. I like to do that. I don't like to do contrived examples unless there's a specific reason to do it. I like to just do live examples because I think it shows what the system actually does. So I'm going to pretend again that the Automa 1 initiative this time, I as the player have to move first. And I'm going to play it like I would normally, although I may leave one of the vehicles out. Now, I measured this as in accordance with the setup for this, and these are 8 inches from the rock, from the back of this rock in the mission setup. So you can see right there, that's 8 inches, that's about 8, and that's about 8. So I'm keeping this lined up with how the mission is set up. And in the mission setup, again, these have a movement point hit because obviously they have 16 inches of movement, so you could sprint them practically off the map on your first turn. So that would be silly. So they all have a half movement. They can still sprint though. And because of that, so when I measure the 8 inches, the reason I'm saying that is because I'm going to be able to sprint these behind this rock on the first turn. And that would pretty much make it, I mean, if the Thunderbolt moved up like this, and I'm going to see if it does, but if the Thunderbolt moves straight up, it might be able to see one of them. But I'm going to see how that works. So I might leave one of the units visible just to make this not totally boring. But I'm just letting you know that if I were playing this aggressively, like I wanted to win, I would sprint these all right behind here and keep them out of sight for the first round. And I think if I did that, I would pretty much make it so they would never get them because on the next turn, I'd sprint them this direction. And unless there's a surprise over here where the Automa is going to get extra units that are going to come in and attack, I don't think it would ever look at those again because they'd be out of the range that it's looking. Let's see what happens. I'll go ahead and move my units. All right, I lied a little bit. My curiosity got the better of me. So I cleared the path for the destroy objective vehicles. I jumped the spider behind the Thunderbolt and I moved the Maxim here. And I don't know, I just had to do it because I just want to see what happens if it has units really close. Like if it's just going to completely forget about these things, we'll see. Now, this one I did keep within line of sight to the Thunderbolt, and any, you know, other things can get to it as well. These two I did tuck behind here, and I'll just show you, just because I think sometimes people get a little defensive about this, but I do want to show you that like I can 100% get these behind here with sprinting movement, right? So they can go 12. I can 100% get them back there. So I'm not like cheating the system or trying to like prove that I'm right or anything. I'm just showing you based on my experience. This is what I see that sometimes I just feel like it's a little too easy to get these things out of the way, but we're going to see what happens here. Okay, so I reshuffled these. I already mentioned that. So now we're on 93 for the Brawler, and we're going to see what this one has it do. So it says if the ideal red target is moved and in 18 inches. So we got to figure out what the ideal red is. I think we've done this before. So once lowest armor, which is going to be the LRM carrier, the 3 destroy objectives, the Raven, and the Spider. Now the Spider has moved, and the destroy objectives have moved. So those are all potential. But the ideal is the lowest TMM, which is going to be the LRM carrier plus these 3, and then the highest point value, which is going to be the LRM carrier. So the ideal target has not moved in this case, and it can't get within, I mean, it could get within 18 inches, but it hasn't moved yet. So it's going to say if there are any enemies within 30 inches, yes, everything. So it's going to go out 12 inches. So here we go. So let's see if these are within 12 inches. I think they will be, because I don't know, actually. No, it's not. So that one is not. Yeah, none of them are. So none of those are within 12 inches. So it's not going to consider those for movement. Okay, so not going to make that selection there. But it wants to target something on the red list. So it could target this if it's within 12, but I don't think it is. No, it's not. So it has the Spider and it has the Raven. Those are the 2 units it could attack. And it doesn't care if it moves. So it's similar to the other card we looked at. It doesn't care if it moved. It just wants to be able to target something and use the red list to figure it out. So I think it would pick the Raven because it has the lowest TMM. The Spider's got a 4 right now. It has a 3 normally. So the Raven's going to get picked because it has a lower TMM. So it wants the target at medium range. It wants to get closer to the target. And it wants to get cover versus as many enemies as possible. Cover's not going to happen. Yeah, cover's not going to happen. It honestly doesn't have very good places to go here. Anyway, I'll figure that out. We'll go on to the next unit. All right, I moved some more units. And I just want to be really clear here. If that Thunderbolt had been further ahead and these were within 12 inches, or maybe if it was 18 inches or something, it would have chosen the LRM carrier in that example because it wasn't looking for a move target. It was looking for any target, and it used the red list to break the tie. This would have won because of the point value, which I think we saw before. But anyway, I just want to be clear. It still wouldn't have picked the destroy objectives. It didn't matter. I would have picked that one. Okay, so I just kind of move some things around like I did before, just basically put them in there. I thought I had to do 5 again, so if that thug's not in the same place, my apologies, but I keep thinking I have to move 5 the second time and I don't. Okay, so the summoner is going to say if the unit can move behind the nearest moved enemy. That would be 2 options here, and it definitely can do this. So I don't know if it can get behind this Maxim, and so I hope you can see that. Anyway, there's the Maxim there. Can it move behind it? I mean, it definitely can move behind it. I don't think it can get around this. Let me be real close. Yeah, actually it could. So it could get behind here, and it could get behind here. So the answer to that is yes. So it's going to use aggressive movement. So it's looking for any target. It wants the nearest move target. So I guess I got to measure exactly. That one's only about exactly 6 inches. The Spider is a little more than that. So it's going to look at the Maxim. It wants to be able to target the Maxim when it's done moving. So it wants to be in the fewest enemy lines of sight and targeting ranges, no other enemies within short range. So yeah, probably going to go right here, even though pretty much everything's going to be able to target it. But I don't think if it went here, it would be any better. Okay, I ended up moving it here because it has to be able to target this when it's done. And either position, it doesn't matter which end I come out on, it's going to be within targeting range of everything. So yeah, there's really nothing I could do. So I figured getting behind it and actually shooting into the rear would be the better move. So anyway, if you're curious, that's what I did there. I'm going to move the rest of my units and we'll finish up. All right, yeah, I realized I did miscount the units because I forgot I added a vehicle back. So I have 14 units now, not 13. Anyway, again, doesn't really matter. Okay, so I just moved them around a little bit, mostly back here. And then I did put the Condor behind the Summoner because I was able to do it. And so now we'll see what the Bane does this time. Okay, Bane's got the yellow list. So the Bane is looking at if the unit has any armor and there are any, okay, so I think this is the same card we had before, maybe, very similar. I don't think it has anything within line of sight with targeting range right now. If there are more allies than enemies within 18 inches, no, that's not true. There's more enemies. So it's actually going to use cautious movement. It's going to go for the nearest enemy, which is going to be, sorry, I don't know if I'm centering that. It's going to be the spider. So it wants to get out of line of sight to all enemies. That's what it's going for here, which makes a lot of sense because it will probably want to try to use indirect fire. I think it can actually do that by just moving right here, like where we had it before, because nothing will be able to see it from that position. So I think that works out the best. All right, let me clean that up and then we'll go into combat. All right, I got to keep things real zoomed here because we got units everywhere. Hopefully you can see that Bane. No, I don't think you can actually. So I was telling you where I was moving it, but you couldn't actually see it. Anyway, it's up there, just at the top there. In any case, I don't really think there's any point in me showing the combat because none of them have line of sight to one of the destroy objectives. The summoner might just be able to see it. So anyway, we'll just do it real quick here. But it's gonna. So what you're gonna see though is this one's going for 6 inches. So it technically does. I don't think the condor down here is out of the line of sight of the Thunderbolt, so it might be able to target that. And I think that might be within 6 inches. But again, even if it goes out farther to 24 inches, it's going to go for the red command list, which I think is going to end up picking on the LRM carrier. So I don't think that's going to pick up one of the destroy objectives. I don't think it can actually see any of them. I'm going to duck down real quick and check, but I don't think it can. Thunderbolt can't see any of them. It can see the LRM carrier though, so that's what it would target in this example, because I don't believe it can target, there's 3 units behind it. It can't target any of those. So, so yeah, it's going to pick the LRM carrier in this example. The missile boat would be next. It's actually out of line of sight, so I technically should have done that first. I have to use the indirect fire instructions because it doesn't have line of sight to anything. So it would be looking for its preferred target, which in this case would be 24 inches out, attacked by an ally this turn, which would have been because I think, hold on, let me measure to that, but I think the LRM carrier would be within 24 inches. Yes, it would be. Yeah, so it would attack the LRM carrier in this example. If that instruction wasn't there, we go to the yellow command list. It would want one of the destroy objectives. The summoner might be able to see it. It can't really see it, but let's just say the summoner did. The summoner would not shoot this round, and the Bane would attack this destroy objective right there. But based on the positioning that I put him in, which was my intention, the summoner can't see it. So the summoner would go after, or I'm sorry, I'm looking at the Bane, excuse me. So the Bane would be going after the LRM carrier. And in this case, the summoner actually would not, it wouldn't shoot. So it would use the indirect attack because it would say it has line of sight to the preferred target, which would be the LRM carrier. It doesn't matter. This stuff doesn't matter. If the spotter deals less damage than the total IF rating, which it does because the Bane does 7 indirect fire and nothing does that much damage, it will not attack. So in our example here, the summoner would end up not attacking, and the Bane would go ahead and attack the LRM carrier. But just for fun, we'll go to the summoner and see what it would do. It would do hit target's rear, which it can do with the Maxim, so it would go after that. Within 24 inches, hit the target's rear, it's going to go here. Even if it didn't do that, it's going to go for armor loss, which is nothing. Point value, which would be the Banshee. So yeah, so there wouldn't be any, it wouldn't be going for any destroy objectives on this round. This is closer to the way I would play it. I probably wouldn't have brought these hover tanks out so quickly. Like I wouldn't have jumped the spider back here. That was just trying to play with it. It actually didn't take the bait on these. But it didn't go for the destroy objectives on this round. So what's going to happen the next round is, and I'm just going to move these. I'm just going to move these up. So basically what I would do, if this was the mission, I would sprint these ahead immediately. Again, barring anything crazy happening over here, like if it brought another unit out or something, I just want to see what will happen. But these are going to sprint, and then we'll see what these do. All right, so I sprinted those forward. Let's just pretend I lost initiative, and so I had to move them. I decided to move those 3 out of the way immediately. So let me take these off of the Aces units. There we go. And then let's just see what would happen here if those were moved out that way. we'll just say like those, let me take these off here. We'll say those and the Raven and the Grasshopper or whatnot. Okay, so let's see what would happen in this example. So the destroy objectives are farther away. I don't think they're 24 inches away though. No, they're still within. So there's a chance they might pick those up, but let's see. So who's gonna go first? The Summoner is gonna go first. Okay, this card got the red. So if the ideal red target has moved, and we know that that's the LRM carrier based on based on this card. Now, if I look on the back of this card, none of these things would apply. Actually, yeah, one of them would. If there's an enemy in one of your units' rear. Okay, so let me switch out the card. All right, this will definitely change things. So we should be on D now. That would probably put it onto the Thunderbolt. Actually, I think they're tied, but whatever. We'll make the Thunderbolt go last this time. Okay, the missile boat would go first, but who cares? Let's just keep going here. So this is going to change things. So now it wants the ideal red, and that's looking at the destroy objective, and it moved. So it's going to look at the destroy objective. So it's going to tie with these three: most armor loss, lowest structure, highest move. They're all the same. So it's just going to pick one of these to do its movement. Now, in a real game situation, there is no way I'm moving these first. These are going to be the last things I move, and I'm only going to give them one unit, or as few units as possible to move and kind of react to this. So, but anyway, just for the example purposes, this is going to pick up on the destroy objective for movement. Okay, so we'll just say it's going to just pick the closest one right here. But now, so here's what's going to happen. Now it wants to be able to move within 12 inches of it, which that I don't think it can necessarily do. Let's see how far it is from this. No, it wouldn't be able to because it's 23 inches away and it only has 10 inches of movement. So it's not, and it's a pretty straight line there. It doesn't need to jump or anything. So it would not be able to get within 10 inches of that. I'm sorry, 12 inches. Can't get within 12 inches. Okay, so then it says if there are any moved units within 30 inches, yeah, plenty of those. It's going to go out 12 inches, and then it's going to go out 18 inches. So it's not going to get those. So it's going to go 12 inches out, has nothing. It's going to go 18. It's going to pick up the Raven with 18 inches of movement. So then it's going to go for the red list, but I think the only thing it has is the Raven. So it's going to do that. Get within targeting to at least one moved enemy. So here we go. So now, even though it picked the Raven, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It doesn't have to get targeting range of that unit. Although this does tell it, I think, that it has to, right? Sometimes I get a little confused here, but yeah, I guess it would, because this selected, it had to be able to target this unit from the red list, which would only be the Raven. Okay, so it has to be able to target the Raven, get closer to the target, and get cover versus as many enemies as possible. So I probably would, I guess, take it like that, maybe. Anyway, again, not a movement demo, doesn't really matter. Let's just say I would do something like that, even though it's exposing the rear to 3 different units. Yeah, not really a lot of good movement options here. Now, I mean, again, if I'm playing this force, if I'm playing the aces myself, I'm rushing this thing out this way and to attack this. I don't care what else is happening. I'm trying to take these things out. So I would move this as far forward as I could. It's trying to get cover. I mean, this is about the best I can do, is just tuck it there and get the cover against the Raven. So, all right. Now let's do the one I was supposed to do first, which was the missile boat. So the missile boat's going to look, it has a yellow list on here. If the unit has any armor and there are any moved enemies in targeting range, but it tried to get out of targeting range last time, so it can't do that. If there are any moved enemies in 24 and no unmoved enemies in 12, I think that spider is still within 12. Yeah, it's within 12, so that's not going to work. So it's going to do cautious again, and it's just going to use ground movement, try to stay out of line of sight of all enemies. That might be tough to move an inch and do that. I would probably just do something like that, just move it up an inch. That's about the best I can do, just to keep by using ground movement. Okay, but it's not too concerned with the destroy objectives at this point. So if I did this one, and again, I'm just trying to do the demo here of just only a couple units plus the destroy objectives have moved, just to give it more chance of picking them up. So here's the Brawler, the Thunderbolt IIC. If there are any moved enemies within 18 inches, yeah, the Raven has moved. It's going to go out 18 inches, so I think this is going to end up the same way as the Summoner. Yeah, the destroy objectives aren't within 18 inches, it's just the Raven. It's going to try to get behind a target, it can't do that. it's going to try to get closer to the target, get cover versus the target, and occupy the woods. It won't be able to occupy woods, but it can definitely move closer and it might be able to get cover because it has 10 inches of movement. Yeah, so it could go like that and do something like that. That would probably give it a good chance of picking these up because this is looking at the yellow list. So there's a good chance it's going to pick those up when it comes to combat. All right, I'm just going to go right into combat. We'll just pretend everything else stood still. Let's just do that. So let's see what would happen here. So the skirmisher is going to go first. That's going to be the Thor. So it's going to go out 6 inches first. And then now I didn't move anything, so I don't know if it'd be able to hit anything's rear, but I would be very careful to not do that. So it's going to go out 6 inches. Then it's going to hit the target's rear and then go to the red command list. So it's going to pick up a destroy objective. So it would attack one of these 3 things. That would definitely happen. Now, if I were doing movement, again, so if I were doing movement like I were playing this mission, I would almost for sure have moved something into close range here for this exact reason, to prevent it from being able to do anything. I would get something within 6 inches to distract it, and I would keep those destroy objectives out of its thoughts when it does its decision. Okay, missile boat. Missile boat's looking within 6 inches as well. Then it's going 24 inches. It wants to hit target's rear, wouldn't be able to do that. It goes to the yellow command list, which is also the destroy objective. Only the blue list, by the way, on here is not the destroy objective. It's going to, I don't think it can hit these though at 24. Yeah, they're too far out of 24, so it would go for something else. So the Bane wouldn't do it. The Brawler, let's see what this will do. It's going to go 6 inches. Again, if I'm playing this, I'm definitely going to have a unit in here. I mean, if these stood still, they're technically within 6 inches. Like this LRM carrier. I mean, this wouldn't have stayed here, but the Grand Dragon is as well. So it would technically only pick one of these 2. Then it would go to lowest armor, which these definitely have the lowest armor, the destroy objectives. And then it would go to yellow command list, which has a destroy objective. So pretty good chance that would have picked it up. But like I said, if I'm playing it like I would actually play a mission, I am definitely getting something in this close range here. Maybe the Banshee. Or maybe one of these fast moving, like I might just jump the spider, because I think the spider can jump 16 inches. So yeah, I might be inclined to just jump this thing like right here, just to make it get keyed on by these for that reason. Like if I'm playing a mission where my top priority is to get these destroy objectives off the map, I don't care about this thing. This is cheap. I'll just put it in here as fodder. But the thing is, it has a really high TMM. So if I jumped it, it would have a 4. So at a bare minimum, like this one's gonna, they're gonna have like a 7 at a minimum to hit it. So it's not like it's a guarantee that it's gonna get destroyed. Okay, I don't know if these examples helped. I hope they did. I probably went through too many, or probably took too long to go through them. But I just wanted to show what this looks like when you've got buildings, when you have units that are destroy objectives, and what the automa is thinking about when it does this. Okay, so just to wrap things up, so the destroy objective is basically going to add a bigger priority on certain units or objects on the map. I mean, that's the basics of it, right? So it's trying to identify things on the map that the automa cares about more than it normally would. So if there's a building on the map, it might care about that a little bit more. And it can do that in multiple ways. Of course, it's going to, the number one way that it's trying to identify this is through the command list, the red, yellow, and blue. So if the color that the ACES card has on it happens to have the destroy objective as its number one priority, then it's going to identify those first. But a lot of it depends on where is that color coming into play. Is it the ideal color? Because in that case, then it picks the destroy objective no matter where it is on the map for movement. But if it's in a combat card, you also have to combine that with range. So it's got to be in the right range to get picked up by that. So it's kind of, you got a couple things working together to make this happen. But this is one way that it's going to get picked up. And the other way it can get picked up is if it's not a normal unit, then we have this list here for something like a building that's going to really prioritize it because it's going to set all its stats to like super low TMM, low movement, and it's always considered moved. So those are going to get picked up with more frequency by these cards because it's usually looking for moved units with low TMMs. That's a pretty common combination of stats. So those are the two ways that it's trying to prioritize these destroy objectives when you're playing the mission. Now, in terms of trying to actually play a mission with this, I feel like it doesn't do enough for my liking. So you can let me know what you think. I'm always interested to hear what everybody else thinks about this. But for me, I don't think this is doing enough to truly prioritize these targets when you're playing a mission. If you have buildings, then sure. Yeah, maybe it does. Maybe it's gonna find those buildings pretty much all the time because they have such low TMM and they're always moved. So they're gonna naturally get moved up in the priority list. But when it comes to units like these, it's really, I don't know, it's really hit or miss because I just feel like it's too easy to get the automa to forget about these. I mean, I hope I demonstrated it here. I mean, obviously having this rock here, and this is how the mission is set up. I mean, the rock's within 8 inches. So, I'm able to pretty much eliminate them for the first round. And then if I get them out of range here quickly, then that pretty much puts them out of mind for the rest of the mission. Now, in this case, the Thunderbolt did move up and this moved up, but again, the way I played it was not the way, the way I did the example is not the way I would play a mission. I'm not going to move these first and let these key off of that. There's no way I'm going to let them do that. I would leave these here and they might still pick them up, maybe, but it's not for sure. More likely, if I had something close by move, it would pick up on that. So that's one part of it. The movement I think is the biggest for me, is that it just doesn't prioritize moving close to these targets, especially if they're a unit. Like if it's a building, okay, whatever, they're not going to move. So you're free to just put these, move wherever and you can still hit them. So it's not really a big deal. But when it's a moving target like these, especially fast moving, I mean, these can still move 12 inches when they're sprinting. So that's a decent amount of movement. So if they can move, I think that automa needs to move toward them consistently and as much as it can. It shouldn't be like, okay, let me try to just move a little bit here, try to get some cover, because if it's trying to get cover, then it's going to just look for something nearby to get cover. And I just don't feel like it's being, it's putting the pressure on the player enough. It's just kind of hanging back. And if it's a real obvious target, it'll go for it, but it doesn't seem to prioritize moving close by to prevent the destroy objectives from getting away. That's kind of my take on it here. I may post actually playing through this mission, but you kind of got a sense of what would happen right here. Like I can get them behind here on the second round. I would wait until the end if I lost initiative, even if I won. If I won initiative, I mean, they definitely can get away. But I would wait and move these as late as possible and just get them back here, and then I feel like the automa would have a hard time prioritizing those. So like I said, let me know what you think. I don't feel like it's aggressive enough. I feel like it's too easy for me to keep these away, especially with the secondary part of it. It's mostly the range brackets. That's the big thing. And so if I found that if I can get units with high TMMs close, because that makes them harder to hit even if they are close, I find that the automa is just picking those up consistently. And then it's just an easy distraction. And again, in a mission like this, I don't care about these cheap units. I'm fine with the automa destroying them as long as it keeps them away from this. So that's just kind of where this kind of falls apart for me, because it just doesn't feel like it tells the automa, you have to destroy these particular units. You can't go after the easy target or the close target and forget about those. You have to go after those destroy objectives. That's critical to the mission. And I know sometimes people will comment and they'll say, well, remember, the automa's mission isn't to, block your objectives, or the objective isn't to just do whatever's the opposite of the player. And that's fine. But in a mission like this, that is exactly what it's supposed to do. Its objective is to destroy these. Plain and simple. That's the only thing it's supposed to be doing. So just the way they implemented this, where it might attack the destroy objectives, but it might not, I think it just makes that type of mission too easy. The other part of this that I found too is that you'll often find that these, the ACES units, especially if they have a low skill, like in this mission, this unit is a commander and it has a skill of 2, they will usually have a really low target number in the first round and they'll overheat. And so then they'll overheat and then they're kind of useless after that. So like if it overheated on the first turn, like right over when it was over here, then it can overheat too. So it would only have 6 inches of movement, and now it's even harder for it to get to these destroy objectives. But I find that it will overheat early because it can almost always get a low target number due to its skill. And then it hampers itself for the rest of the round and the rest of the game because it's got less movement, it has no TMM, and it has a harder time hitting things. So again, if I move these fast units in on the second round, because of the overheat, now they're hitting on 9s. And it's really, really hard for them to hit. And if I can get it in cover, then they're hitting on 10s, but they'll still go for them because they're so close. So I don't know. Those three things are kind of where I'm sitting on aces right now. I feel like it's, it is good. It definitely can automate a force for you, but I'm finding that it's a little bit easy to manipulate. And I think, with the destroy objectives in particular, because they're relying so much on those colorless, bringing it up, and they're relying on things being in range, it just doesn't feel like there's as much tension as there should be on that. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you for watching as always. Definitely interested in hearing what you have to say and talking about it.